Joe Orth and I are starting a podcast. What should we call it?
Hey, don't pick on me. You know why? Because this is why. Let's see what he says.
The Joe Show?
Give Joe the business?
That's right.
Cup of Joe.
Cup of Joe.
What is happening here?
Would you listen?
We'll give you a chance.
Thank you.
That's Joe.
That's Rooster.
And this is the Together We Shall podcast, episode 45. What's happening, man?
Nothing. Another day. But what's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear 45?
George Bush.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
What about you?
Nope. Mine is I
Rudy.
wish I was 45 again.
That's funny. Jill's our guest today, and usually our guest gets formally introduced, but Jill's like, I'm in, y'all. So you know what? Screw it. Let's go. Jill Burwell, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's our absolute pleasure. This is going to be a blast. Tell everybody where you are physically located and why you think you're on the Together We Shall podcast.
I am sitting in my house located in upstate New York near Saratoga, not far from Galway where the Evans family lives. And I believe I'm on the podcast because I asked to be, because I wanted to share my journey with the Albany Adirondack Ambassadorship.
In addition to sharing your local ambassadorship, we took your ask and said, heck yes, because we want your story to go across all of the Ainsley's Angels family and beyond to anybody who fumbles across this podcast and can learn a thing or two about what we're going to talk about. So
Okay.
at the beginning of the year, I like to take some time to look at my own health with emphasis on my blood and my labs, and I have my doctor check my A1C and my blood pressure and my cholesterol. Every day should be a time to think about our health.
Right.
I was listening to a podcast earlier. This individual who got his new ice bucket. I have been doing that for a little over a year now. He correlated healthy and happy in the same, and how you have to have that because it powers your brain. And he said, probably your most important organ, heart, brain, you got to have both of them. I never necessarily put together healthy and happy, because you can be happy and unhealthy, and you can be healthy and unhappy. But when he said putting the two together, I was like, well, damn, that does make sense.
Yeah, I think there's a slogan for one of our pharmacy stores out there. Walgreens or on the corner of healthy and happy or something like that. I could be wrong. But why are we talking about this stuff? It's because Jill's journey with, frankly, high blood pressure led to a stroke, as she's going to tell us the stories here.
A significant stroke.
Very significant stroke.
Yeah.
And she survived it, but it's got its lasting impacts, and it is taking a toll on her daily execution. But she went on Facebook and said, hey people, I'm your friend Jill, and recovering from a stroke is hard work. My stroke happened all due to hypertension. And when I saw that, I was like, that's what we're going to talk to Jill about, in addition to a bunch of other things. So Jill, maybe you can take us back.
Sure. Be happy to. In my 30s and 40s, and just so everybody knows, right now I'm 60. In my 30s and 40s, my blood pressure was low. In my 50s, it started to go up a little bit. Not a lot, not crazy. And my doctor put me on medication and I took it, but it didn't bring my pressure down enough. So in my 50s, my blood pressure was in the 140s over 80s. And I was exercising every day. I was doing high impact interval training workouts 3 to 4 days a week and walking 3 to 4 miles every day and sleeping well and eating healthy. And then out of nowhere had the stroke on February 26th. So I thought I was doing everything right, and all my blood work was good.
February 26th. Wow. So we're literally approaching the 1 year since you had the stroke. And I want to come back to that day when that happened. So many things to unpack. Joe, what are you thinking?
Well, I like how, Jill, you took us decade by decade and how things were good and you were working out and eating healthy and sleeping right. And those are things that I can tell you, I guess, in my last year of my 30s, that 9 years ago I didn't really think about. I looked at like healthy as, did I look good, and like what was my 5K time for the most part, because I was 30. I never thought about it. And ironically, on my 30th birthday, I had a kidney stone. So,
Oh God.
but like blood pressure and all those things as a, like, what do they call it? Like everything under the hood that you don't necessarily see and you might not feel. Do they call blood pressure the silent killer? Is that the one that's the sun? Yeah. And so I'm looking at the chart here. 140/80 puts you in that high normal.
Right.
But once you go to 140/90, now you have high blood pressure. So in a matter of 10, an increase of 10, and your diastolic, one measures like when your heart's resting and one measures when it's beeping. But just in a matter of 10, you can go from eating healthy, working out, everything's good, normal, but a little bit high, to, in your case, a stroke, which is scary for the most part, right? And people aren't. I know for a fact that I didn't start checking my blood pressure other than when they went to the doctor, the twice a year, like, oh, that's cool. But now I do it probably anytime Rooster like sends a picture and he's like, hey, look, I'm like, man, I got the little machine. I run in, check it. I'm like, all right, good, we're good.
I mean, you don't have to be obsessed with it, but you've got to know it. Like when you go to the doctors, a lot of times it's high for people because they have white coat syndrome.
Yeah.
It's important to be checking it throughout the week when you're living your day-to-day life, and log that and give the doctors those results, so they have things to go off of other than just when you're in the office.
Yeah, that's great advice. Where'd you find Ainsley's Angels?
Spring of 2015. We have a local publication here that does a sports expo every year. And there was a little article in the publication about the fact that Sean was going to be speaking, and it talked about Ainsley's Angels. So I went to the expo, found Sean, introduced myself, and said, these races will welcome Ainsley's Angels and these races will. I've already spoken to the race directors. And I said, how do I get involved? So he said, become an ambassador. I'm like, okay, how do I do that? I had no idea what that meant. So he forwarded me the application. I sent it in March. And I remember like waiting every day to hear if I was approved or not, because I couldn't wait to be an ambassador. And I remember saying to my sister, what if they don't want me? She's like, what, are you crazy? Why would you say that? They want you. And then in March got approved. And in May I was ready to roll, and we didn't have chariots yet. But I had races lined up long before I had chariots.
Yeah, we would say Jill was an ambassador long before she was an ambassador. Like, that's outstanding. I never knew some of those details. Joe, did you know all of that?
I was an ambassador before you had an ambassador and training program. I was like, what the heck is that?
Well, it's funny. So you talk about, you were an ambassador before we had an ambassador and training program, and the application and the program has evolves yearly, let alone 10 years ago now. Like, like this,
right.
How we've grown in our mission and everything and better to train and equip ambassadors. But I mean, like, it's also neat how that ties into, you were an ambassador before we even knew what ambassadors were, but you've been an ally for forever. And now we have this program to help people and train them how to become allies for inclusions. Yeah. Little did we know where we would be in 2024.
Crazy.
It is crazy,
Yeah, I can't help but first of all, I want everybody to know that the Sean that she's referring to is Sean Evans, episode 8, when Sean and Seamus came on. I don't want to make assumptions. Go back and listen to episode 8. Sean and Seamus talk about running across America and other things that Jill referenced. But also, like, this is kind of neat, Jill. As I listen to you talk, Ainsley's Angels were all angels. So we're angel runners, which you did the second you pushed a chariot with a rider. You had a chance to be an angel ambassador and be.
I loved.
Yes, you brought the program to your community. You were amazing at it every step of the way.
Well, thank you.
Secondly, you have taken on the role of guardian angel. having stepped down from the ambassador role, you stayed involved and did guardian angel functions. And Joe just alluded to the fact that you've done angel ally tasks by showing up for others. So the only one that you haven't done, and maybe I'm wrong here, is angel rider. Have you?
Oh no, I'm an angel rider now that I had the stroke.
You are the only person in the world that has been an angel rider, an angel runner, an angel ambassador, an angel ally, and a guardian angel of Ainsley's Angels. That just gave me body chills. Wow, Joe, we are in the company of Ainsley's Angels royalty. Did you know all that, Jill?
I love this organization so much that when I had to, in 2018, I changed jobs and I didn't have the time or the energy to be able to devote to being an ambassador anymore at the level that I wanted it to be and that I expected myself to do it. So in spring of 2019, I told Sean and Nicole that I had to step down, which broke my heart. I cried when I told them. And then, COVID and all that garbage happened, and winter happened, and things got really quiet. And I missed Ainsley's Angels so much. And then I had this stroke, and I'm like, oh my God, now what? And my rehab hospital I was at was having a 5K. So I reached out to Nicole and our local ambassador, Stephanie, and I'm like, hey, my rehab hospital's having a 5K. This would be perfect for Ainsley's Angels to partner with. And I'd like to be an angel rider, and my friend will push me. And my family is like, no way, you are not well enough to be an angel rider. Because at that point, I was still having to wear a helmet because I had had a craniotomy related to the stroke. So they still rolled. And I've since been able to be a rider in 2 5Ks. And they were my PRs. My friend Mark pushed me. He's a fast runner. It's a lot of fun being a rider.
No, that's so special. And I'm so curious, how would you describe the difference between being a rider and being a runner, an angel rider and an angel runner? What stands out as the differences, if any?
Oh, well, when you're an angel rider, cheer on your runner. And I thought it was especially cool that I was an adult rider, because a lot of people think of just kids being riders. But as an adult rider, I think it kind of opened up different windows and different opportunities, whether it's people on the sidelines or just they saw that it's not just for kids to be a rider. At my rehab hospital, I talked to the social worker there, and we have Ainsley's Angels flyers up. And I've talked to support groups saying, like, if you have a family member that's a runner, or if you would like to be a rider, Ainsley's Angels has angel runners for you. So don't let that stop you, and talked about it, because the mission of inclusivity is so important.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
You were an ally before becoming, an ambassador and all these other things. And even going through those 5 different roles, the one thing like that's remained the same, like you said, is your love for the mission. And that's what's great. You would think, right, that the transition from a runner to a rider would hurt, if you would, right, emotionally or whatever. But you're sitting out there saying you can still smile and wave and have a good time and PR and like, Rooster and I have pushed the youngest to the oldest, and I've said it a lot, right? It's for the kids, but obviously, children, adult, teens, veterans, whatever, is different in the connection that you have during that time, right? Like in the things that you can talk about. So that's probably neat. Like for Mark, like you guys could talk about, I don't know, the stock market or something, it's just the different, it's not one's better than the other. It's just different. And the fact that you're still embracing the difference, it just shows how, special you are.
Well, thank you. I gotta say, I'm nervited about Marine Corps Marathon. I'm super excited about it.
Wait.
So,
Marine.
Oh, sorry, I
Marine.
jumped ahead.
No. What do you mean Marine Corps Marathon? You're gonna
Well,
do the Marine Corps Marathon?
I'm going to be an Angel Rider at Marine Corps Marathon.
Ladies and
So I'm
gentlemen,
gonna
how
hook you up
about
with a solid runner?
what,
It might be you, Rooster. Well, I hope you're training. I'm not some little kid.
did I just get called off the bench? Wow, that's a big. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Miller time. It's that part of the show where
Cheers.
everybody grabs their favorite beverage. Oh God, Jill, what are you drinking today?
Water.
Water. That's what I have in my cup too. That's good. Joe, what are you bringing to the fight?
water.
Awesome. So we ask everybody whether it's water or whatever you prefer, and make sure all your friends, looking at you, Josh, are able to join us, whether you have a feeding tube or a water bottle. All right. So, Joe, before we talked about Miller time, Jill said something about the Marine Marathon. I think this is a good opportunity, perhaps.
Yes, we'll talk about the Marine Corps Marathon, but before there was a word or words that she said before Marine, and it was nervited. What is nervited?
Seamus Evans coined it. Nervous and excited. So you're nervited.
So Jill is nervited about being a rider, Angel rider at the Marine Marathon. And what's making you nervous about it?
The unknown.
And what's making you excited about it?
Just to be with so many Ainsley's Angels all at the same time, and everybody says it's such a beautiful course. I ran one marathon in my life. Actually, I'm going to take what Dave Ramsey says. I ran 2 marathons in one day, my first and my last, because I swore I would never do another marathon. But being an Angel rider has completely changed my perspective, because I'm really happy to be doing that.
Whenever you finish this marathon in October, it will be your second marathon. And
Yep.
I want you to confidently know that you will have ran your second marathon. There's a big toll that 26.2 miles takes on any athlete, whether it's an athlete rider in a chair, a hand crank athlete, an athlete using their legs, the body, the time, the wear, the tear, the emotion, the integration of all the senses. Like, you will be exhausted. And I'm going to be cheering you on. This is going to be such a wonderful 49th running of the Marine Marathon.
I'm so excited about this.
So for those of you that are listening and or watching, and you're like, man, that sounds fun, I should join. Well, you should join us. And you can do so by emailing joe@ainsleysangels.org. And we'll start that process. I mean, it's a big year. It's the 49th running. We got 100 bibs, right? So we're towing the line a little bit deep this year.
Ainsley's Angels has 100 bibs.
100 runner bibs.
Wow.
Plus all our riders. Yeah. So we're trying to go big this year in an effort to showcase just how awesome this race really is. So the next year at the 50th, sky's the limit. So you're going to be so excited but tired after crossing that finish line. You're going to look back at Rooster, who was just called off the bench, and say, I want to do it again next year. Well, how about that? Done. Easy day.
It's a good thing I know the guy that does the pairings. Here's what I can promise you, Jill. You'll cross the finish line in October at the Iwo Jima
I have no doubt about that.
Yeah, the United States War Memorial will be welcoming you. So it's going to be outstanding. Oh, gosh. So Brain Injury Awareness Month in March. Going to release this episode here in February to give everybody time to get ready, to be cognizant, no pun intended, or maybe a pun intended, about Brain Injury Awareness Month. And I didn't know this, Jill, but you said that strokes are considered brain injuries.
Yes.
You care to elaborate?
Well, when you have a stroke, it affects your brain, obviously. But what a lot of people don't understand is, like, when they think of somebody having a stroke, they think of like older people, like grandparents. Now, I was 59. I consider myself young when I was 59 to have had a stroke. Recovering from a stroke is hard. Not only is there the physical aspect of learning how to walk and all that stuff. Fortunately, I'm right-handed and my stroke affected my left side, so I don't have to relearn to eat or anything like that. It didn't affect my speech. I did have to relearn how to swallow. There's things your body just has to relearn that you don't think about. Cognitively, it took my independence and my confidence, and it rips the rug right out from underneath your world. And it doesn't just affect you, the individual. It affects your family, your friends, everybody.
Yeah, I remember when I learned that you had to be rushed to the ER, and that I actually heard, hey, it's not looking good. That was the first report I got, and I remember
It's
saying,
probably a fair report.
oh my gosh, like tell me more. Like, how did this happen? Where did this come from? And everybody's like, it just happened. So could you take us back a year ago to that
Sure.
day and what you
Yep,
remember about?
it was a beautiful winter day. And my dad is a volunteer fireman, so it's always been important to me that our fire hydrant was cleared. So I walked up to the corner to clear the fire hydrant. And then as I was walking home, I stopped at a couple of neighbors' houses and helped them shovel their driveway a little bit, nothing heavy. And then I was home making breakfast for my husband and I, and all of a sudden my left leg went numb. So I tried to walk along the counter from the sink to the refrigerator and couldn't do it. And thankfully, my husband was right there to help me. He sat me down and I could not sit up in the chair. So he said, "Are you okay?" I said, "No, I think I'm having a stroke." And he called 911 and the EMTs came, took me to our local hospital, which is a level 1 trauma hospital. And that was on a Sunday. And on Tuesday night, so my brain is a hemorrhage, I don't know how to say it, but it was related to a burst blood vessel in my head. So blood was leaking in my brain. And then that pressure was causing my condition to decline in the hospital. So by Tuesday night, they had to make the decision, would I have a craniotomy where they cut out half your skull to relieve the pressure on your brain and to remove the blood that was pooling. So on Tuesday, I had the craniotomy, and on Wednesday, I woke up and had no idea the severity of my condition. My family decided to have the surgery, even knowing the risks, because it was the only opportunity that I would have for any kind of quality of life. So, yeah, life is different, but life is still great. I was in the hospital for 3 weeks, and then I went to the rehab hospital for 5 weeks and started therapy. Then I was home for about 5 weeks and had to go back in on June 5th for surgery to reinstall my bone plate. Because this side of my head looked like a deflated football because the skull was gone.
And how long were you in there in June? Just like, it was at a day surgery or a week or so?
Oh, I was only in for 3 days.
Yeah. And since the middle of June, have you had any additional flare-ups or incidents, or
Nope.
so right back to where it was weeks before?
Pretty much, yeah.
And how is your blood pressure these days?
It gets taken twice a day, but I'm on a lot of medication now, whereas before I was on 1 medication. Now I'm on 5.
To help maintain and your blood
Correct.
pressure?
Yep.
So for our listeners with, a high or somewhat high blood pressure that are on medications, you were in the same boat. You were 140 over 80. You were on a blood medication for your blood pressure.
Correct.
Like, what do you want to tell those people?
Don't be afraid to challenge your doctor and say, I want to see a cardiologist. I mean, I tell people, don't be afraid to share my story, because it was scary having the stroke. And it has been hard recovering. But I've got a year under my belt on this recovery road or journey, as we call it, because Lord knows it could take 8 to 20 years before I'm fully recovered. What does that mean? I don't even know.
Yeah.
The challenging the doctors, it's a great piece of advice. Darlene talked about that a little bit on her episode. It's your body. It's so like if something doesn't feel right, the the closed mouth doesn't get fed type of thing. And I had that experience a couple months ago where my back just was starting to hurt more and more. And luckily one of my doctors was like, yeah, I mean, let's take it to the next level and revisit pain management, physical therapy, and all those things. And it's like, all right, yeah. I mean, I hadn't been the doctor in years for my back because I was just like, it is what it is. But it started to hurt a lot. So I went, and I didn't have to challenge him because he was on my side. But I've also seen in the last 12 months, I've had labs done twice from 2 different places. And some places test for one thing, some places test for different. And there's one place says your range should be this, and one place says your range should be that. So the other day I was like, man, this is confusing. So now I'm going to a third party, but I want to know. I want to know not just what Dr. 1 and Dr. 2 said, to check under the hood. And a lot of that comes from like Bruce John about getting his blood done, but knowing that like you were coming on, Jill, and some of those things, I was like, you know what? And it's not necessarily a third opinion, but it's just like, let's get another result. Let's see what it's going to be. So yeah, I mean, challenge the doctor, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, under the hood, whatever it is. That's a great testament.
It's important. I'm not saying go in there and say WebMD says or Dr. Google says, but it's okay to say, I was reading and I'm wondering about this. Because the other thing is too, doctors, they don't learn nutrition when they go through med school. So many of our doctors have been out of med school for so long. So much has changed and they've learned so much. There's always the argument of Eastern medicine versus Western medicine, and that's all, kind of a personal preference. I think the perfect thing for me is a blend. Like, I want my doctor to be open to things like acupuncture or other modalities, because there's a lot of good stuff that is old medicine. I mean, let medicine be thy food and food be thy medicine.
The idea of the Eastern or Western or open to new things is, I mean, Rooster had acupuncture the other day. Like there's, like you said, some doctors have technically, been out of med school for a while, and that's why it's called the practice of medicine, because it's continually evolving, whether it's, old, new, East, West. But when you talk about like the Googling, a fun fact is when I had my first kidney stone, my doctor was Dr. Google, but it was like GOUG something else. So when the nurse was like, all right, everything, blah, 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 I'm going to get Dr. Google, I was like, hold the phone. What's happening? I freaked out a little bit. And Leanne's like, what do you mean? And like, that's her name is Google. And I was like, she's got to get a new, you can't tell people like, all right. Here's just, I peed in a cup, they did all the blood, and they're like, all right,
I got Dr. Google right here.
Yeah.
And that's something to like, we live in that day and age where it's very easy to regularly Google something and see all the different types of strokes and all that. And then you start thinking, man, like, do I have that feeling, whether it may be a bad back or your stomach or, Rooster and his diverticulitis or whatever they are, right? But like you start Googling those things, then you're like, shit, I might have this. And then I bet if you took your blood pressure at that moment, you'd be like, oh, now I got high blood pressure. It's like, man, so I know I struggle personally with that like balance of, man, this hurts. Let me look into something. And then you Google it and you're like, it's like, don't read that. But you need to read that so then you have some ability to talk in a smart manner with the doctor.
Ask your doctor questions.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. Ask him questions. And if you go back to episode 14, Joe mentioned Darlene. She came on and talked to us about her journey after receiving a chronic illness diagnosis and how that chronic illness and the diagnosis of it actually has shaped her life to what it is today as she leaned into fitness and well-being and whole, full mind thinking. That is an example of someone who challenged the diagnosis but wasn't in denial of the diagnosis. She also challenged the medical recommendation, which was, now that you have this diagnosis, this is the prognosis. At the end of the day, they're all osises, which is to say guesses. So you can take it by the horns and you can drive and you can make decisions about how you can not allow a diagnosis to shape who you are and not allow a diagnosis to become your label. And I want to never refer to my friend Jill. Hey, this is Jill. She had a stroke. No, this is my friend Jill, who's been with Ainsley's Angels for a decade and has done every function that we offer by way of our roles. Well, what do you mean she was a runner? Now she's a rider. Well, she did have a stroke, but it doesn't define her. And I think those are the things that as you go down a road of thinking about how diagnosis is going to affect you, like you can become whatever you create in your mind. And Jill, if you create in your mind that I'm a stroke survivor, that's one way of thinking about it. I'm a stroke victim. That's another way to think about it.
Absolutely. It's perspective.
Totally perspective. And as you're on this journey, and you were very clear to highlight, it's not a road, it's a journey. That is mindset shift. That is perspective shift, because journeys, they don't have a set path. A road has a set path. And so that's important kind of mindset stuff that we can all take in and help us as we navigate some of life's toughest things that are thrown at us. So this is great that you're here to share. What else is on your mind?
Well, wasn't it Darlene that said life will knock on your door when you least expect it?
Hey, you've listened to every episode, Jill. So if you say that Darlene said that,
we'll take your word for it.
And I thought to myself, life knocked on that door for sure.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident that at a minimum it was someone who has ties to the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's fair. What Jill, you mentioned, quoting old guests, like you have indeed listened to all the episodes. Is there anything that stands out to you, having had 44 of them to listen to and to immerse yourself into?
Well, certainly your children are so articulate and well-spoken. I loved Briley and Camden's. And I love when Lori's on. And also Tracy and Tanya, all of them. I'm waiting for Leanne. Why has Leanne not been on?
We could have some fun there, boy.
Leanne, I'm calling you out.
Wow. Joe's just okay. He's completely innocent here.
I will schedule it when I am told to schedule it.
No, that's great. And thanks for the kind words about my children. Of course, having Briley come on early in the process, episode 2, and talk about so many things as perspective that she has as Ainsley's sister. And now, that was February 18th of 2022, 2 years almost to the date as the airing of this one. And we're going to have her back to talk about what she's been up to for the past 2.5 years, which is a lot. And then, of course, to have Camden come on like the same day that he raised his hand and took the oath to enter the United States Coast Guard. And literally, like, as this is airing, he's starting his first couple days of work down in Gulfport. Wow. Yeah, so I get excited and ramped up anytime you talk about our kids. And of course, Lori will come on anytime we ask her to. It's just a matter of, the timing. But I think she's due, Joe. We got to get Lori. Maybe we could do a Wolfpack episode.
My stance on that. I schedule them when I'm told to schedule them, but perhaps in
Joe, you sound nervous.
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. I'll see you in 7 days, 8 days, whatever it is, and we'll see where that conversation takes us.
All right, that's fair. That's fair.
I
Jill,
also love Kelly O'Claire.
Oh, God.
I thought
yeah.
Kelly's was very powerful and very interesting with the parallel between the LGBTQ community and Ainsley's Angels and acceptance. I thought it was really interesting. And I also wanted to be sure to tell you guys that I'm praying for the Marines that are missing and their families. That's got to be hard for you guys to hear as Marines.
You know, thank you for that. And first, yeah, episode 37, Kelly O'Claire, Marine Corps brother, comes on and just, wow, what a story. Episode 37, give it a chance. But you know, when I heard of the CH-53 crash in Southern California last night as I was watching the news, your heart does immediately think about your brothers and sisters on the ground and whether they survived or not. But then you have this operational thing happen in your mind. And immediately I'm like, okay, when's the last time the 53 squawked? Do they have beacons on? Did they fill out their survival, evasion, and resistance escape cards? You know, all the things that's going to facilitate their recovery if indeed they were alive when they hit the ground. And then you look at the weather and potential threats and all of the things the terrain's offering. And so fast, you can get so far ahead of your mind about what should be happening operational that sometimes you can even forget about the fact that the families are so lost and on the edge of their seats for information. So thank you for those prayers for them, for sure, Joe.
Yeah. And as of like an hour or so ago, it was made official. And so that's tough for sure, right? So thoughts to their families. And I mean, you and I both know someone very well who lost her son in a 53 accident. You know, it's tough, you know, losing service members. And we just hope that, you know, there wasn't any neglect and wrongdoing and that they, you know, really are going out doing what they loved and serving their country with their brothers and sisters beside them. That's all we can hope for.
Yeah, and I've had a really, really amazing opportunity with the Travis Manion Foundation to really get connected with Gold Star family members in a way that my 25-year career never really gave me the opportunity to do. And the second that people, as Ryan Manion came on our show and talked about that knock on the door, I mean, there's knocks on the door happening across the country that are absolutely changing the lives of so many people left behind, if you will. And we talked in episode 31 with Ryan, who's the president of the Travis Manion Foundation, and she said that the best way to channel her grief was to serve others. And I think that that's a great message here as we tie it back into the fact that, let's face it, Jill, you're grieving who you were before your stroke.
100%. And I remember waking up early on after my stroke, still first in the hospital, and saying to my sister, I've got to get involved in an organization or something to tell my story to help people, because people think about people having strokes only being old. Like, you don't think about, like I said, at 59, I certainly didn't feel old or consider myself old. And I was very intentional in my 20s, 30s, and 40s to be living as healthy a life as possible so that I could get into my 50s and 60s healthy. Never, ever dreaming that this would be my life at 60 years old.
Well, there might be something to be said to how you intentionally lived a healthy life for 20s, 30s, and 40s. And maybe that's contributing to your ability to recover. I mean, you're only a year away from a craniotomy. I mean, come on. And here you are sitting and coherently having a conversation and sharing your vision and your desire to serve and inspiring others in your storytelling. So kudos to being intentional about good health, because you never know.
You.
Off the top of my head, I know two individuals that had strokes. One obviously being you. The other, I know an individual who had one at 37. Same thing. He thought he was healthy, you know, former Marine, like late mid 30s, was like, yeah, I'm healthy. Had, what's it called? The smaller version, TIA or something, I think.
Oh, the TIAs.
Yeah. And what they found out was the reason you have this is because you have high blood pressure. Never was getting labs done. Never was because we're in our 30s. That's not what you do. And the other day I was speaking to him and he was like, man, I'm feeling good. I think I'm gonna try to go a couple of days without my blood pressure medicine and see what happens. Needless to say, I don't think he even made it 24 hours and is back on it because he was like 2 something over something and was like, okay, yeah, this is it. I need this, And I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't play those games anymore.
TIA is a transient ischemic attack, basically a temporary blockage of blood flow to the brain. And I guess you could call that like a mini stroke or
Right.
I think that's what they call them, yeah, mini strokes, something like that.
But they also say that if you have TIAs, you're much more likely to have a significant stroke.
Yep.
Yeah. So there has a whole list of symptoms out there ranging
Yep.
from vision issues to dizziness to southern severe headaches. So, I mean, ultimately, consult a doctor if you're having anything like this. Jill, Rooster, and Joe are far from MDs, but we are humans that pay attention, and we have had enough conversations with people to conclude, engage with medical professionals, and then, challenge them along the way. I know when my back was an issue for me, and Joe talked about his back, I finally got to a point where I'm like, it was diagnosed as X years ago, but that diagnosis doesn't fit with what I'm experiencing. And at the end of the day, I challenged my doctor to practice medicine. And that's what she did. And it led to so many amazing discoveries. And am I like cured? No, I'll never be cured. It's arthritis. It's in the L5, L6, S1, and it's massive. And I feel it all in my lower extremities. But I know what to do to help with pain management. I know I need to stretch more, and I know I can't run every single day. So these types of things, sometimes you just have to have some conversations. But
I think it goes back to like the Google thing. I mean, I bought the book the other day, Ultimate Back Fitness and Performance, and it breaks it all, it all down. It's just one of those things where it's like the doctors and the practice of medicine, like the world allows us, thank you, Jeff Bezos and Al Gore, to easily have this information, whether in our mailbox in 48 hours or in 48 seconds, like, just take the time, everyone, and look after yourself. We only get one of these things called life, and they go quick. That's for sure.
yeah, they go quick.
That was Brian Mannion that said life knocks on your door. Not Darlene.
So it was.
There we go.
Man, look at that. Not losing a step. And one of the other things, since you brought Ryan back up, that she said, and I talked about the other day in a conversation, was the struggle well. You know what I mean? Like, and that's, life is a struggle. There's not a person on this earth, in my opinion, that isn't going to struggle or struggling with something. So you just have to learn how to like channel that and learn how to struggle well. Like Rooster always says and used to talk about, finding your new normal. And, you don't have to accept what some of that is, but you need to embrace it in order to live life to the fullest that you can at this time, whether it's 60, 30, 40, whatever it is. Live that healthy and happy life. This way you can live to the fullest every day.
There you go.
You've got to make choices how you're going to live. And what my thing is to live your life in excellence. And that's going to be different for every person because everybody's going through a different struggle. Like I wake up every morning, I say to my husband, what do we say today? Thank you for a great day. Because I am naturally an optimist. My sister tells me everything's not unicorns and rainbows. I'm like, well, in my world it is. That's how I choose to live. And when I'm not feeling positive or optimistic, I get mad at myself and I get in this really bad loop. So you've got to make choices, and you can choose to live an optimistic and positive life, or you can choose not to.
The whole choice thing is like, man, like how we can apply that. having a conversation last night with Owen about choices. For him, it's pretty easy. Like, don't do that in line at school. But if we can start to like mold that you do have a choice at the young age. I mean, I remember, I wish I knew exactly how it said, but Michelle Pfeiffer in God, what's the movie? Where she's the teacher and the former Marine.
Bro, you're
Oh
the movie
no!
guy. You're the movie guy, bro. What is happening right now?
Dangerous Minds.
Okay.
God bless America. Whew, sorry, Michelle. She's the former Marine, the teacher in the inner city, not a good school, and she's talking to them about choices, and the students are like, I didn't have a choice. It's gang or this. It's like you do have a choice. You choose to walk down that street with your head held high. You choose to come in here and participate in class. You choose, like, we all have a choice. It may not be the best choice, and it may, lead to another choice, but we all have the choice to take care of ourselves and how we're going to do so and live with those rainbows and unicorns. And if you ever come across a unicorn, call me. I want to see it. But, yeah, we have a choice for sure.
Dangerous Minds, 1995. Choices
Yeah.
come in all varieties, wanted or not. And we need to be not only aware of what choices we're making, but become conscious of the ones we're avoiding. Emphasis on what we're avoiding. We're avoiding the opportunity, Jill, to be optimistic. We're avoiding the opportunity to have a positive mental attitude. That's what we're doing when we're not optimistic and positive. And I'm not going to sit here and say we got to be optimistic and positive every moment of our day, because I used to live my life that way. And it wasn't until I was open to feeling all the feelings that I realized that, hey, sometimes it's going to get dark and you have to let it come in. And I've told people this a couple of times. When you can see the dark cloud coming, and then you can see the dark cloud over you, and then you can see the dark cloud go away, that's when you're living. But when that dark cloud comes and you didn't see it coming, and then it gets stuck over top of you and you can't see it leave, you're never going to see it leave.
That's hard. I recently had that happen. If I get too tired with this stroke, it really takes me down, and I'm an emotional basket case. And I had a few days where I was just in this downward spiral, and I was like a negative dog chasing its tail. I was angry about everything. I was angry at all the things the stroke took away from me and my husband and my family. So I wrote a list out of everything I was angry at. And that gave me very short-term personal satisfaction. But then, and I had my husband burn the list. But then I wrote a letter, and I don't want to get overly religious, but I wrote a letter to God about the gifts that we've been given since having the stroke, because there have been plenty of gifts. And there have been plenty of blessings since having the stroke. And unfortunately, it took a stupid stroke to bring some of those not to fruition, but at least to focus on and recognize.
Yeah, and that's it. Recognition of the gifts that life's toughest moments offer to us in the end. I mean, my daughter died.
Right.
I can stay under that cloud, or I can choose to view it in a different light, which is, wow, I get the opportunity to be the president of my daughter's legacy, that she would want me to go forth and continue to do the things she represented when she was here. So bravo to you for having taking the time to emphasize on those things that are the gifts. And you mentioned a moment ago, I don't want to be too religious, you said. Spirituality is one of our 24 character strengths. So if that comes to you through a connection with a deity, or if that comes to you through a connection with nature's beauty, at the end of the day, spirituality is something we should never apologize for. So I'm glad to hear spirituality is playing a role in your journey, and that you're leaning into it, because that's going to be one of the key factors in your journey, your positive journey. So, wow, what a dive.
If I go back and I read that letter to God I wrote, it gives me a sense of peace, and it reminds me of all the things I'm grateful for. Whereas I don't ever want to read that list I wrote of everything I was angry at, because that's just going to bring those feelings back up. And I don't need that. I need to focus on the gifts and going forward and not backwards.
Beautiful. Absolutely well stated. That's almost like one of those things. What do you want to leave the people with? Which we're going to do here in just a second. Even though you gave us a lot to leave the people with, I want to give Joe some time here as we prepare to wrap this out. Joe, what's on your mind, if anything? And then we'll hand the closing comments out to you, Joe.
Yeah, I think the spirituality thing is. Thank you for bringing that up. Both of you. It's something that the other day. While I was doing my Marine stuff, we were doing a goals and a mentoring spreadsheet, and spirituality was on there. And that doesn't necessarily mean like, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, like that's not
Right.
what we're asking here. It would have said religion if it said, but yeah, spirituality is definitely something to be talked about. Man, as soon as you said character strengths, I was like, man, I was supposed to do do the survey again in January, and I haven't yet. So maybe later today or tomorrow, I'll do that and see where I'm at in comparison to 6 months ago.
What Joe's referring to is values in action. You go to viainstitute.org and you can see in a matter of about 15 minutes how your 24 character strengths are showing up in your life. If you do take that survey and you want to share with us, we would love to hear what your top 3 and your lesser used bottom 3 are, and how you feel about that. Just email podcast@ainsleysangels.org. And that's for all of you that are listening, because, there might be a nugget out there, something somebody takes away from the VS character survey. Well, Jill, this has been a blast. It really has. It took us to a couple places I didn't think we were going to go to, which is perfect for the Together We Shall podcast. Excited to see you in October. Would
I
love
can't
to
wait.
know. Yeah, would love to know what you want to leave the listeners with as they carry on the rest of their day.
Live your life in excellence.
Mic drop. That's perfect.
You know what? I got enough.
He's in charge.
We're done. This was good.
Yeah, we're done here. The structure of this building has reached its capacity.
Find your people, and if they make you feel sexy, even better.